The anticipation for the 2024 trade period is beginning to ramp up. Players and their managers have more power than ever, and clubs seem to be granting players their wishes far more often than not. The money in the sport at the professional level since COVID has been a remarkable turnaround. It wasn't that long ago, staff at clubs were getting cut and players were taking less pay. In just 3 years, not only has the financial health of the competition bounced back, but it's now in a period of economic boom. The players know this and they are cashing in. Up until this point in time, no one has benefited more than McAndrew. The Gold Coast Sun Tall signed a $12 million contract to play 9 more years up north. It's the richest deal the AFL has ever seen, even beating out Lance Franklin when he moved from Hawthorn to Sydney. What made the deal more interesting is Andrew, who has so much talent, has only played 41 games and only turns 21 in December this year. It's a massive amount of money for a young man who is yet to play a half century of games at the AFL level. But it clearly shows clubs are so desperate to keep talent no matter the cost, especially when the market is so open and every club is looking to poach players from the opposition. The deal also raised some eyebrows due to one clause. If Andrew plays 60 games in the first 5 seasons of the deal, it will then trigger the last 4 years of the extension to result in the 9-year contract. It's the first well-known public clause that protects a club from concussion retirements, giving them leeway if Andrew was medically finished on say 40 games, then therefore they wouldn't have to pay him for the last 4 years of the deal. This will be an important part of many of these mega contracts that we will see in the future. You can't talk about contracts and not mention Bailey Smith. In some ways, he's been the forgotten man on the field, but has stayed just as relevant off it. It was the worst kept secret in football, but a couple weeks ago it was made official that he wanted out of the Western Bulldogs and is likely to request a trade to Geelong. But it won't be that simple. Not only will the trade probably go down to the end of the trade period, due to Geelong having a first round pick that will be in the high teens, if not 20s in the 2024 draft. The Bulldogs will want more, and it will be a showdown on who budges first. Geelong will argue you're better off having X and Y instead of nothing, and the Bulldogs will say if you don't give us what we want, then Smith can go and try his luck in the pre-season draft. But the trade will also cause headlines because of partnerships. In 2016, Cotton On became a major sponsor of Geelong, and the two organisations have only grown since. Tom Hawkins' wife, Emma, has modelled for the company. Geelong players have helped design clothes and also collaborated on various other projects. It's a deep connection. Fittingly, Cotton On is also heavily connected with Bailey Smith. He first posted a video in January 2022 modelling for the brand. He's gone on to create a fashion line himself and continues to be one of the faces the company has used to promote itself. Because of Cotton On's connection with Geelong and Smith, it raises some questions around player payments. The complications stem back to Chris Judd when he moved to Carlton from West Coast and was reportedly paid $200,000 a year by Visy Packaging to be its face. At the time, they were a major sponsor of the Carlton Football Club, and the payment was seen as a part of the package to get him to the Blues from West Coast. In 2012, the AFL changed payment rules under the Additional Services Agreement, and eventually, Carlton had to rule all the payment under its own salary cap. The complication with Smith is that he's already partnered with Cotton On and that this involves a trade from another club. For example, if he joins Geelong and his Cotton On payment increases, say $100,000 per year in 2025, obvious questions will be raised. But Smith can just point out that because of his following and perhaps Cotton On profit due to his own line, that the payment increase is legitimate and has nothing to do with his move to Geelong. An ABC article on the discussion said, The complication with Smith is that he has significant social media reach and is hands-on with his fashion brand, meaning it's difficult to means test his true value to Cotton On. What can't be argued against is that the Cotton On relationship started while Smith was at the Western Bulldogs. If he did happen to end up at Geelong, the AFL would be keeping a close eye on future payments to ensure a consistent flow. It's a fascinating backdrop to the trade and one to follow in the future. But not everyone is as wanted as Mac Andrew and Bailey Smith. Essendon's Jake Stringer finds himself in a very unique position. His management, when they did his last contract, made a strange decision. By the time his contract was up at the end of this year, it was detailed if Stringer played a certain amount of games, he would get another year. Sounds great in theory, and Stringer did achieve the clause. But when he looked down to see his yearly wage in 2025 would be just $400,000, panic surely would have set in. Now I know for 99% of the population that is a large amount of money, but in the AFL context, it wouldn't even be the average wage. From the outside, it looks like horrible business from his management. Now Stringer is desperately searching for a 2-year deal from anywhere, as Essendon will not budge. He is now 30 years old, but did kick 42 goals in 2024. It's a good goal kicking return, but there are clear deficiencies in his game. He is always a bit out of shape, can disappear for long patches in the season, and doesn't defend the ground at all. Clubs know this, and that's why the interest is minimal. He might win you 2 or 3 games a year, but his impact in the other 20 is questionable, and on a 2-year deal there is some risk. Sydney and Collingwood have been named as possible suitors who may be able to provide the structure around Stringer to get the best out of him, while trying to hide his defensive problems. Stringer is in a strange spot in his career, and it was leaked recently that he has told people he has played his last game for Essendon. Perhaps out of desperation, he is trying anything to get another club to give him a 2-year deal. The AFL player movement landscape is changing and quickly. If you are young and have talent, the football world and its money is your oyster. Get ready to see player movement increase right now, and in the future, we may be heading closer towards an NFL model where players will move clubs purely to get contracts that set them up for life. Andrew's $12 million for 9 years will look pretty modest in 5 years' time. Whether you think it's fair or stupid, it just is the reality of the market. At the end of the day, a player's worth is what someone is willing to pay, and right now, clubs are willing to fork a lot of money out for any bit of talent.